It says we are live. Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to BioBridge. Today, 2 weeks from our last episode, we had a special guest from Shugai. Today, we have somebody else, an ex AbbVie boss, AbbVie Japan boss, with us today. Very special guest, James Feliciano. Uh, we've got a big program today, and we're going to get into it very quickly. But before that, Ibrahim, anything? How's sunny Florida doing?
Hello, hello. It's sunny but very cold. No,
Cold?
it's
Cold.
finally warming up. I know, never could compare to Montreal. That's the
It's
thing.
also warming up here. Don't worry. We're going. During the day it goes above freezing just by a degree or two,
Yeah.
but it's very comfortable. I mean, by our standards, and we're looking forward to the coming spring.
Yeah. But very
James,
excited
James,
to have James with us.
yes.
How you guys doing? Good to see you guys. And thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan of this podcast or what is it? What's the official
Is this
title?
part? Uh, it's like a podcast. I mean, it's
Yeah,
all kind of overlapping now. Podcast,
yeah.
a live stream.
Well,
It can be used like a podcast just for the
hmm
audio, or it
hmm.
can be used like a YouTube program.
Well,
Uh, Either
I'm a I'm
way.
a I'm a big fan. I think you're doing a very nice service for the industry to connect people and to raise awareness. So I have a little bit of imposter syndrome to be invited on here. So
Oh
thank
my
you very
goodness!
much.
You're like
What?
the last person that should have imposter syndrome.
Oh my goodness! We are very honored to have you
Thank you.
with
Thank
your
you.
your expertise, your experience, and everything that we talk about here, connecting the
Mm,
Japanese life science ecosystem with the
mm,
global ecosystem. There's no better person than somebody like you yourself with decades of experience. But before we get into our specific topic, we want to know more about who is James Feliciano. I mean, you don't look very Asian, so why are you in Japan? How long have you been there? Let's start from the beginning.
Sure, sure. I first came to Japan in 1989 as
Last
a
century.
ju a junior in college, right there during the big bubble period. I was a foreign exchange student at Kansai Gai Kokugo Daigaku, and that was
Oh.
my first experience in Japan. I really enjoyed it. Um, then when I went back and I graduated from undergrad, I w- was I applied for a fellowship at the University of Michigan to study Japanese studies and got accepted. So
So
had a
you first
yeah,
came to Japan, and then you went back and did Japanese studies.
correct,
Okay, because
correct.
oftentimes it's the opposite. People
Yeah,
who are through mangas and anime, they love Japan.
exactly.
They do Eastern studies and whatnot, and then come to Japan. But you did the other way. You kind of
I
first
did the other way.
got a
Yeah,
taste of
and
it.
so had 2 years at the beautiful University of Michigan in Ann Arbor,
Oh
and got a
yes.
master's degree in Japanese studies. But it
Okay.
was still very young days. I was only what 21, 22 years old. So
A
I
few
got a
years ago.
one yeah, look, got a one-way ticket back to Japan, and I lived in Gifu Prefecture for about 7 years, studying kendo, studying shodo, and teaching English and studying Japanese. So
Uh-huh.
just and backpacking around Asia, just kind of going through a very nice formative time of my life, figuring out what I wanted to do. And that's when I really crystallized around, okay, I want to contribute more to Japan and to help be a bridge in some way. Um, I didn't know where it was going to go exactly, but I got a job at Canon and
Oh.
the copier, the camera company. And in that case, Canon was headquarters. So all of the affiliates would come to Shimamaruko office for Canon to go talk to headquarters, and I was often in the room for those meetings, and I learned that I can do that. That's something that I can be. It's not out of reach for me. Um, so I talked to some mentors who suggested I get an MBA, and so I went back to the States, went to Cornell University, got an MBA, and that's when I career switched into pharma, and that was the
Oh,
moment.
you went to MBA and then
And then pharma.
what got you to pharma? I missed the
Yeah,
little
yeah.
trigger there.
So when you get an MBA, you have your summer internship, and I interviewed with a number of different companies across different areas, consumer packaged goods, electronics, consulting, and one was Pfizer actually, and had a really
Mm.
good experience through that interviewing process. And so I spent the summer in New York, working as a market research intern on Aricept for Alzheimer's, actually.
Wow!
Yeah, back in the day.
Now, you know, I was at ASI for a while.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
so in
So
2008
yeah,
to 2012. So
and I
that is
just
definitely
yeah,
close to
I
my
just
heart.
fell in love. I fell in love with pharma, and so then made that my kind of my where the road I wanted to go down. So I when I graduated from business school, I joined Wyeth Pharmaceuticals and was in their Asia Pacific commercial operations group. So helping
Where was this?
work. This was in Philadelphia,
Okay.
and headquarter based, but supporting the Asia Pac region.
So
Um,
you were at Canon in Japan. You
yeah,
decided to leave the company and do an MBA back in the
correct.
States.
Mm,
Okay. So
yeah.
no, you had to go off on your own. Canon didn't say, well, we'll train
Uh,
you,
I
send you to a business school.
Yep, it was a
Wow.
stop everything and get $85,000 in debt, and
Still cheaper than today.
I had to really convince my wife that this was going to pay off.
Well, it
Yeah.
paid off handsomely,
It
it
did, right? Yeah.
appears. All right.
Yeah,
So
so
this is the 2000s, right?
yeah, so then with AbbVie, I'm sorry, with Wyeth, then they were about to launch Prevnar, the vaccine, pneumococcal vaccine. And so they then dispatched me to Japan to set up the vaccine business. And
Ah, yeah, that's coming
that
full
was,
circle.
yeah. So then I was back in Japan. Pfizer ended up buying Wyeth. And so then that my career in Japan just sort of blossomed, and I never went back. And so I've spent now the last 21 years doing pharma in Japan. Through that, working for Wyeth, then for Pfizer, then went to Merck Serono, the German Merck, and then was lucky enough to have 10 wonderful years at AbbVie as their general manager. And starting,
Oh,
yeah. And now I've
so
started my own company, 3C Advisors.
there you go. So the years with Pfizer Japan
Hmm.
or at the
Yeah,
beginning in Shinjuku. All
yeah,
right, all right.
yeah.
I don't know if
The Quint Bidu.
oh yeah, the quick deal. Were you there at the same time as Tim? Tim was on this show also. Tim Kendall. Um,
I don't
I mean,
know if we
quite close.
overlapped or not.
Hmm.
I don't think so. I don't
The
think
Merck
so.
Serono. Okay,
Yeah, worked for the
that's
German Merck.
hmm
That was my first time to be a country manager, so I kind of cut my teeth there.
in
Uh,
Meguro, wasn't it? I think it's in
that yeah,
the office is in Meguro.
Gajo in. Yeah, they've since moved now. They're in Azabudai Hills. They have a beautiful office.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
their GM Jeremy there is doing a great job. Yeah, and
Wow.
then AbbVie had just spun off from Abbott, and they were looking for a new GM, and I really liked the story. It was going to be a big growth story about really introducing a whole new pipeline. They had Humira, but it was in a co-promotion with Azi at the time.
Yes, yes.
So, but then they had this promise of bringing in this whole pipeline. Um, but they didn't really know much about Japan, in all
Hmm.
honesty. So, as the GM there, I could really build the organization from scratch and really create the mechanisms and the connections with headquarters to really create, what I think was, looking back, one of the highest performing teams I've ever worked with, which was just
Wow.
a real joy. And to be able to we launched so many products, so many indications. We were just a launch machine, and We're also ranked #1 pharma company by Great Place to Work. So we weren't just launching products, but we were also building a very strong corporate culture, which is something that's very near and dear to me as well.
Amazing. I mean, what a great story. Come in, take a peek in Japan, went back, decided to go full on study, and then come back, teach English, uh, and then an MBA. That decision probably just changed everything
Yep.
and got you into pharma. Look at where you are today. You run a company called 3C Advisors. Now, what are the 3Cs, and what exactly do you do?
Yeah. So when I was at AbbVie, we had something called the 3C mindset, which was communicate, collaborate, and celebrate. And we always talked
Celebrate.
about and the easiest way to celebrate is to say thank you or say good job, you know. So we always talked about the 3C mindset. So when I was transitioning to this, to starting my company, was literally just sitting at a table thinking, well, what am I going to be? Like, how am I going to market myself? What is it? And 3C, it's always kind of been part of me. So I took the 3C, and the 3C stands for consulting, coaching, and connecting. And
Consulting,
so
coaching, connecting. All right.
and so along those lines, I do consulting for pharma companies, as well as I'm a venture partner for SciSay Ventures, and I'm helping their stable of companies that they're helping to grow. I work with companies who are trying to enter Japan. I provide
But
fractional
to connect.
GM. Yeah. And then the connecting part is more about, we've been in this industry so long that we know people, right? So I'm always looking for opportunities to help synergy create for good. Sometimes it's just, hey, here's an email, you guys connect. Other times it's more formal, but so it runs the range. And then the second C of coaching, I'm an executive coach. I'm ICF certified coach, and I do team facilitations and coaching. And that's also a place where I really get to try and give back, because I really want, my goal is to have, Japanese talent really thrive on the global stage.
There you
And
go.
and I really want to help foreigners when they come to Japan not shoot themselves in the foot.
It's gonna take away their guns. It's going to be hard. We all
Yeah.
have to step on the landmine here and there, lose a limb, just try to control the
Uh,
damage. But it's hard. It's
it's
hard because
hard.
it's such a different environment, such a different mentality. Um, that if you've never been to Japan, it's a lot of it almost seems like a caricature to I think first timers.
Well, yeah,
And
and
I
then
would say,
yeah,
vice versa too. Some Japanese people who come over here and, things don't come on time, or, it's,
yeah,
it's just very
you know,
different.
I think as expats when they come to Japan, you you're clearly a talent in the organization, so there are high expectations. Japan is a very big market. You're getting a lot of your stakeholders above you have high expectations for what they expect. You're coming into a team where cultural norms are different, and how do you navigate that in a nuanced and in a very deliberate way, um, and not be like coming in and just having another rising sun motif of the rising sun coming over Mount Fuji, and we're all going to climb the mountain or whatever, because the Japanese teams will say, "Oh, here we go again,"
Uh,
So, how do you co-create and co-lead and empower your team and build an engaging organization? Um, that does the work for you, instead of coming in and trying to do everything. I see a lot of expats come in and get frustrated because they're over managing, micromanaging too much.
hmm. That actually raises a question for me where, you did your MBA in the US,
Mm,
right? And then you went to Japan with, I guess for me, you know, I'm doing an MBA right now as well, but a lot of it, the theories are kind of Western based, I think.
Hmm.
And then you brought that to Japan in a way. And then, you know, what kind of clashes or, you know, how did you have to manage the differences in Japanese culture and what you've learned?
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest, I think that one of the biggest things you learn in business school is the group projects and the casework, right? So you're in a team of 4 people. It's moving fast. Um, you're trying to make decisions as quickly as possible with what you have in front of you. It kind of it's designed to make you be vocal, to have healthy tension, and the Japanese culture is not so much that. It's much more deliberate. It's much more kind of understand what you're looking at before you make a conclusion or make a statement. And the intent of the Japanese side is to give a good output. But the signal that can sometimes be sent to a Westerner with the Western frame is, what are they doing? Why are they stalling? Just say something, you know. And that's
Think out
where
loud.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. So it's intent versus signal.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting, and but you can't make an excuse for it. But within your team, you have to create new norms around communication, and you have to say things like, okay, based on the information that I have now, my recommendation is this. It's subject to change, but what do you think? And to practice that muscle with your team. And I find that Japanese, especially very smart Japanese dynamic individuals, they're able to use a framework if you give it to them. And sometimes you need to create kind of those rules for how to communicate so that you can navigate around some of the common cultural pitfalls.
Well, I think it has to do with, in a way, risk aversion, uncertain, dealing with uncertainty. It's very tough for them. However, if you give them the guardrails or the rules, like you said, then perform very well within that framework.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
I mean, I can remember having, as a GM, a big part of your job is to understand where the pain points are at headquarters and to help to triage that. And early days in the R&D, they were having these calls late at night, and they're looking for instant feedback on ideas and or proposals, and like Japanese people just aren't good at that, right? Especially when they're part of a larger clinical team, for example, and they're just representing. They don't want to agree to something and then take it back to the team. And they're, well, why'd you agree to that? So I had to train headquarters to say, look, before this meeting, if you can list up your questions ahead of time
there
and
you
give
go.
and give them 24 hours to be able to triage that list and to come to some consensus beforehand, you're not going to get that silence that you're misinterpreting. Actually,
Mhm.
you'll get great content, great fodder for discussion, and it'll make the meeting a lot smoother and productive.
Mhm.
So
It,
yeah.
No, I feel you're hitting the nail right on the head. The meeting, the symbolism of the meeting place, is different. For a Westerner, the meeting place is the brainstorming place, is the discussion place. Whereas for Japanese, it's more of a formalizing place. All the discussion should
Indeed.
be done prior to that, and
Indeed.
so that framing is very different. And so if you don't have that difference already understood, then of course you're gonna have friction.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, as a GM or as a senior leader, you need to help to recognize those pain points and, put in some norms, some rules of the road that helps to facilitate smoother communication, so that everyone kind of gets what they want at the timing they want in the way that they want that works for them culturally.
No.
Golden nuggets right
I know,
there.
man. Kept me employed for a couple of years.
But before you came to this wisdom, you must have stepped on a few landmines. There
Oh,
must have been some funny, remarkable, memorable anecdotes that you throw out every time that you go out for a beer with us.
you know, I can tell you one where, because you see sometimes in movies or what have you, the Japanese boss kind of banging the table and everyone jumps to attention and they go out and they get it done, right? Like, honestly, Japan could be further from the truth about that unless you're in some sort of like militaristic type structure or something. But because we were having a launch, we were far behind on expectations, and I tried that approach. I went into the I went into the area managers meeting and I just said, "みんな何をやってるんですか?" これどうしたんですか? Look at this. Look at these numbers. What is going on? And it had the exact opposite effect of what I thought. And I had to go on like an apology tour. and and people's feelings got hurt. They were like, "Who are you?" And you can't talk to us like that. And it was a real learning moment for me of, don't believe everything you see. This yes, there's hierarchy, but there's also respect. And I completely misplayed my hand on that one. And
Mm.
yeah, luckily
Well,
I
I
didn't
mean,
burn it. I didn't burn any bridges, but it was a learning.
maybe it's the period, the Jidai, right?
Mm,
In the 70s, 80s, that would have probably passed.
yeah,
Or the community. In a professional setting, it's probably not the place to do that anymore. Whereas if
mm,
you were in a sports team, right, these baseball teams, soccer teams, whatever, you have the senpai, kohai, the coach.
right. Yep.
Then there's that very hierarchical, very vertical relationships where the top dog will bark a lot.
Yeah,
So
indeed. Indeed. I mean, I also have a theory that um, many people they self-select to work for a global pharma company versus a Japanese pharma company
yes,
because
yes.
they want, I don't want to say a softer approach, but they want a more human approach. That
It sounds the
maybe
same to me, but
that
less
that
hierarchical, perhaps, right?
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and so at AbbVie during my 10 years there, we were a very empowering organization, and we really valued, interactions and, you know, getting to know people next to you. And actually, when I was there, we moved to a new office and we got rid of all offices. It was just a complete open desk, open seating system. Even
Nice.
myself, yeah, I didn't have a desk. I was just always kind of popping around, and you know even that people were just so surprised. I would sit down and open my computer and start working on a PowerPoint or something, and they
You're
would
doing
say,
the
yeah,
MBWA,
yeah, what
the management by walking around is
yeah, but they would look at me and they'd say, "Shacho, you make PowerPoints?" And I say, "Well, I got a boss too, man."
but
Pretty funny.
that's yeah, that's a good point. You say people self-select. Some people they feel that that's what they need, like this more hierarchical, this rank-based approach, and a lot of people are tired of that. Maybe
Yeah,
they prefer a different approach. To each their own, as you
yeah,
say.
but there's still these lingering stereotypes of, you can't leave the office until your boss leaves and stuff. Well, if you're working remotely now 3 days a week and it's all
Mhm.
hot seating, you might not see your boss,
That's right.
for days. So it becomes a new way of management, of
Mhm.
empowering and having very clear metrics and clear reporting structure of how you're tracking things. So there's been a new kind of leader is evolving in Japan, I think, which is exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Those who've always wanted to be original, who always wanted to be different, who wanted to do their way. I
Mm,
think the whole environment, the whole ecosystem is now more, um, I guess, adaptable to that type of different ways of doing things. Whereas before, you really had those, you know, the shapes that you had to fit
yeah,
into.
yeah,
Uh,
very much
uh,
so.
And it
well,
was
thanks to
like
the
small
pandemic
company
in
or
a certain
large
way.
corporation. Yeah, it's like small company or large corporation. It was like the only dichotomy you had if you were in Japan, I think.
Hmm.
And so what's exciting for me now is, I spent most of my career on the big pharma side, customer facing, large organizations, large sales forces, and now a lot of the work I'm doing is more on the startup side, with Saisei Ventures, and through Saisei Ventures, I'm the CEO of Surzen Biotherapeutics, which is, a company of three. And with I'm sitting as the CEO for the moment, and but you're seeing now like a real true wave of interesting innovation and like new attitudes and younger people. That's
Yes,
very, very exciting. And
that's
um
amazing.
yeah, and you didn't really see this 10 years ago.
I was just going to say, even 10 years ago, I think youngsters would feel very, um, feel like it's a big risk to go to small companies.
Hmm.
Uh, Today, still, but a lot less. I think they like the challenge. They like the different ways of doing things. So some
Yeah.
smart kids out of Todai or Hyundai would, you know, go out to these little companies. So
So
it's a
so
great
what
trend.
I'm doing now, one of the things I do through Saisei Ventures, of course, and with Surzen Biotherapeutics, but I'm also an advisor to Link J, which is in the that corridor there with
Yes.
uh, where they all the kind of farmer corridor there in Tokyo. As an
Mhm.
advisor, is just helping these young talents to kind of think with the end in mind and to understand kind of what the big pharma, what are they looking for, and what are some elements that you need to have into your pitch deck early, and what are the thoughts that we want to see that's going to make your innovation attractive, you know so that you can when you pitch, you can pitch effectively, for example. And I'm finding a lot of the things that I learned about the front end of the business when you're customer facing is equally applicable, much further downstream when you're starting off. What is the TPP for this? You know, um, let's not just do science for science sake. The studies that we're doing, what are we truly pointing at? And where do we want to go with this? And let's go down that path until the science says no, and then we reposition. But a lot of times you see startups, just they're doing this, they're doing this. It's kind of all it's a little fragmented, and
Mhm.
and when you're on limited funds, fragmentation is not very efficient with money.
Mhm.
So having a strong hypothesis, having a business idea, and saying this is okay, we're going to take the science down this for this indication and see how far it can go. Like that kind of helping startups to think about business in that way
There,
is fun.
there's been a change, I think, a sea of change in terms of um, talking about a business case, making money. These are all very, used to be very taboo discussions. But now, when resources are limited, um, and now smaller companies have more support from the government, it feels like the Japanese pharma ecosystem itself is really going through a transformational period.
Amazing.
That's
Yeah,
that's that's how I feel. Even though, like, I started my own little company 2 years ago, and I'm sort of within this transformation time. But for 10 years before that, I was on the CRO side running clinical studies. So I wasn't really like on the innovation side. So I really didn't know what was going on. But
Hmm.
before that, I was at ASI. So it's just like that 10-year gap where I feel like it's two different worlds when
Yeah,
I emerged from the CRO side and came back into the pharma side. So
indeed.
it's a very exciting time. I feel.
I'm very excited to see what happens these next 5 years. I think,
Hmm.
we're seeing, a lot more non-dilutive funding opportunities, from the government. So they're very committed to this,
Yes.
which is a
Yes.
great way to drive science and,
Hmm.
using those non-dilutive funds with, VC money is a very powerful combination where I mean,
Smart.
there's a lot of opportunity here for some really I'm just waiting for some of these big successes to come, but they're on the way.
Yeah, we're there to witness it firsthand.
It's
Uh,
great.
Definitely a great time to be in the industry. Um, and as you say, so AMED, which is basically the NIH of Japan, has been plowing money, I think, into the ecosystem for the therapeutics. But I am hearing good things about med tech, health tech. So everything in the life sciences is fair game at this point. I think the whole government, with the new prime minister, also, I think they're all aligning towards this push for technology, for science, not just life science, but everything technology is getting a push. And bilaterally, I think they want to globalize. So, as you mentioned, a lot of these companies, they have to, what part of their mandate is to set up shop in the US or elsewhere and do run global clinical studies, but also the other way. Now, I'm seeing initiatives from the MHLW for introduction of global startups to come into Japan. So we're talking about bringing in, having a pipeline to bring in know-how from outside and have this cross pollination go on. And
Yeah,
and it's smart. I think it's smart.
yeah,
It's got to go
yeah.
both ways.
So one project that I'm working on right now is I'm representing an overseas company as their general manager here in Japan. Um they have set up a Japanese entity. They were able to get AMED funding, and we're working with local CDMOs to figure out tech transfer, and really it's gonna raise the bar for the entire ecosystem through this.
Yes.
And as I'm part of it firsthand, I really feel like such a smart investment by AMED, because
Yes.
we're getting the technology here much sooner. We're getting the technology around it as well, and that's making the CDMOs stronger, that's making the
Yes.
CROs stronger. It truly is an ecosystem that is blossoming as a result of this, because the local players have to be able to collaborate,
Yeah.
which
I
means
mean,
scaling up.
you mentioned earlier this partnering with VCs, aligning incentives, trusting the VCs to vet the assets, getting them to put their money where their mouth is, basically is really yielding a lot of dividends. And great things are just going to come up one after another.
I think so.
And another thing I really like about this program is it's also a great incentive for capital to come into Japan. So we've got investors, Blackstone, EQT, Curie, these global VCs and PEs are signing up with AMET in order to play in this ecosystem. Because again, for those who are not familiar with this program, is that if you're a Japanese startup and you get money from VCs that are registered with AMED, let's say you get $1 million or $10 million, AMED will put in double of that, so 2 million
Yeah,
or 20 million. So it's just insane. It's not, it's non-dilutive. They don't want any equity. They don't want a board seats, or VCs are happy, happy, happy with that, right?
yeah.
So
It is, I will caution that you do get access to AMED, you get access to all of their expertise, and there's so many positives. However, every yen is counted.
yes,
So you need to have an infrastructure set up here. You need to be very organized.
Yeah.
You need to have a strong alignment within your organization to always be audit ready.
Yes. To
Because
be disciplined.
and I'm very impressed with AMED because
Mhm.
this it's not a slush fund. It's the applications are very very thoroughly looked at. The science is carefully looked at with subject matter experts, and then how the money is used is tracked very very carefully. So
Very, very
um,
close.
very responsible use of taxpayer money.
It's taxpayer money. I mean, they
Yeah.
have to. You know, I
Yes.
talk to lots of startups in the U.S. And VCs who want to get registered. I tell them, I mean, there's not a lot of rules other than if you're a startup, you need to have a local affiliate. That's the minimum legal requirement. But in order
Mhm.
to really achieve, success and get this grant, is you have to think like the government handling the Japanese people's money, right?
Mhm.
So why would
Mhm.
they invest in you? Are you contributing to the ecosystem somehow? Like it's a very high unmet need in Japan. It's a technology that comes out of Japan, or a collaboration, a joint venture, or a professor, a Japanese professor at Harvard, MIT, whatever. You need that Japanness, Japan
Exactly.
story to it, right? And
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
hire a CEO in Japan, that and you
Yes.
groom the CEO to become a global leader, et cetera, et cetera. You have to convince AMED that it's a good idea to give you this money, which is hard-earned, money
Yeah.
from the Japanese people.
Looking
Taxpayers.
at looking at it holistically, it's not just bringing in innovation to patients, but it's raising the bar for everybody around.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Mhm.
it's a very noble cause. It's fantastic.
Indeed, the VCs too. I mean, you can't get registered just because you're bringing money.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
need to bring know-how. You need to be able to contribute to the ecosystem meaningfully, help the startups achieve, whatever milestone, exit, IPO, M&A, licensing, et cetera, et cetera. You have to show AMED that you can do that, not
Yeah.
just bring in the money. So
And that's why, I think if you're a relatively early startup in overseas looking to enter Japan through this program, um, you have to come in with an awareness that it's going to require an extra lift for all of your people across the globe. Um, it's not an easy thing. It will
no,
require really coordinated extra work, maybe some more headcount, to really execute on this in the way that to the precision that AMED expects. In
it's
other
true.
words, there are no free lunches.
No, that's definitely the case. It's not easy for Japanese companies to go out into the brave new world, US, Europe, whatever. But it's also very, very difficult for global companies to just come into Japan thinking it's going to be a walk in the park. It's not going to be a walk in
Hmm.
the park.
Hmm.
Uh, right? Lots of hidden
Yep.
costs that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, and just elbow grease. You know, just- it will be work. And there will be moments of why do we have to do this or what? Yeah, and there's because because it's Japan.
It's so obviously wrong. Why is everybody doing this?
You know, every receipt has to be printed out and put into a binder, for example.
Wow.
Yeah,
So why would anyone go through this trouble about Japan? You've been in Japan so long, right? I really want to know, like, why Japan?
why do I support Japan or why do I think
Yeah, like
Why
why do you think
companies
anyone
look
should
at
bother
Japan?
with Japan?
look, I feel it's such an amazing market because of the access and I mean globally the fact that everyone in Japan has access to medical care and cutting edge medical care. That it's an amazing experiment they're doing here, and no other country is really doing it as well as Japan is. Now, there are certainly budgetary issues around this, and how sustainable is it? Could be some questions, but I really feel like Japan has got an opportunity with AI now, with their national health insurance system, with everyone having the My Number card, with all of the innovation that is here. Japan could become the next kind of the place where you can mine and see, okay, and look at large, broad scale outcomes and really identify what's the best treatment pathway based on these points or these characteristics. I think there's so much opportunity with the data that's here in Japan, that is still not being leveraged as well as it could. But for the most part, I mean, my biggest point to Japan, or I'm in favor of it, is just the access you get here, the timelines. There is transparency. Sometimes you may not like the rules, but at least you know the rules. And the rules do change, but you can always know, you can always understand what to expect.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
great.
gotcha.
So that's one facet, and then the other facet I'd like for you to tell us is, like, what are the strengths of Japan right now? That, for someone looking at, we always talk about people entering Japan and, why you should enter Japan, but like, what should you buy from Japan? Why should you look in Japan as well for technology, for example, or science?
Yeah, well, I think that there's just a lot of very interesting untapped innovation in Japan. And that's one of the things when you look at Saisei Ventures. They're doing a program called Bridge to Bio, where they're exactly trying to help extract that out and kind of mine it and give it a pathway out and give it a platform. There's a lot of that. There are a lot of great ideas here, and I think Japanese technology, there's so many patents in Japan. There's so much amazing research that's being done in these universities that some of the most amazing next generation innovation is here. It just needs to have the right pathway to come out. So I think there's still a big opportunity for people like us to position ourselves to help nurture it and help it to see the light of day.
Yeah, no, completely agree with that. And then, I think the two key words during this conversation that came up and kind of stuck to my mind, and it was like completely out of context, but it was the precision one, Japanese precision. And then the second thing is, you talked about the TPP, or the target product profile, but it's the purism to the science that kind of like, so it's like the purism and the precision that kind of really come to mind as strengths of Japan that I think are completely extractable and need that nurturing, like you talked about.
Yeah. And, I mean, just in my experience, you can have an amazing scientist, and scientists just love to do studies, but you need a good R&D guy, a good scientific R&D guy to help structure that in a meaningful way, so that you're going about it in an efficient way. So there's need there. There's great science, but how do we make it as efficient as possible, to really get to business outcomes as quickly as possible? I think that's where there's still opportunity. And
Tremendous opportunity.
yeah, and VCs coming in, and this is one of the reasons why I joined Saisei Ventures, and we felt like I would be a good fit, is because that's my mindset. I'm going to look at something immediately, and I'm going to say, well, tell me the patient who's where's the unmet medical need for this, and you see so many pitches in Japan where they'll start with the first slide and they'll say, this is a $10 billion opportunity, and no, it's not. oh no, it's not. Yeah, you got to where are you truly targeting? You can't just target whatever it's, some broad diabetes. You have to really drill down to it, like what truly is your target product profile, and how does that fit into the existing framework. And I think that's a miss we see a lot, and we're working at SciSafe, we're working hard to do that much earlier on, so that it guides our science in a more targeted way.
So what are ventures doing well right now, and what could be done better as well currently?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I'm new to this. There needs to be more cross-pollination, I think. There needs to be more getting together and sharing ideas and sharing learnings. And I think places like LinkJ offer, kind of a community for that and opportunities for that. But I want to see more of that. More when you go out to Silicon Valley, or you go out to Boston, there's so many networking events for people to share, and there's a buzz, there's an energy. I think we need more of that in Tokyo.
There are more and more,
There
but
are
more, even more.
Yes.
Every week. Let's go.
Yeah. Let's go.
There's material. There's enough companies out there, and the more we have of that, the more we make it into a routine. The more we're going to get global VCs to come to Japan. Something I want to do at the next Bio Japan, bring in investors from the U.S. because they don't know anything outside of the U.S. Maybe a little bit of Europe, but Japan is a gold mine of tremendous technologies for very low price, given the yen depreciation, also the lack of inflation. And so it's a great time to go in. It definitely is a great time to go in. And more
It's
of these activities, right?
Yeah.
These investor events. I'm actually just gonna plug a little thing. I'll be in Japan next month in a few weeks. I'll be pitching for one of my clients at the Investors Day Japan on March 19th. So it's a Thursday just before the long weekend.
Nice.
And yeah, I've spread the application around to some of my friends here in the U.S. and they applied, and a few of them got in. So we're all going to go in there and have a blast and pitch to Japanese investors, talk to Japanese pharma, and at the same time, I'm setting up different events on my own, talking to like CIC Tokyo and do a little gathering there.
Great.
I love these events where we get people together in one room. We talk about an asset. We talk about questions of technology, or where are we going with this new treatment. Lots of fun stuff, and sparks flying all over the place when we all get together in that
Indeed.
room.
No, you're a pioneer, man.
I just love
You're
partying. Productive partying. No alcohol involved right there. All right. So, Ibrahim, you have any other urgent, burning questions before we start to think about turning around and wrapping things up with
You
bigger
know,
philosophical questions?
yeah, no, good point. So you're saying philosophical question, and that was exactly what I was thinking about in those lines. But you're talking about these events, right? And one of the barriers that I see, and this is something you've probably done already, James, is how do you open up the Japanese people to actually share, right? Because it's a very internal facing, quiet, etc., right? And that's probably one of your biggest accomplishments, I would guess, is like opening people up. Like what are the good keys to unlock this so a conversation actually starts in Japan, and where you could actually gather people into these networking events, and it's not just this professional very I guess surface
The ranks and
Yeah. But and it kind of goes back to the comment I made that sometimes people self-select, to work in a gaishike instead of a Japanese company. A lot of these innovators and these startups, they have they're different people. They have different they have a lot of what's the word? They have a lot of courage. They're willing to try, they're willing to fail. So I think, and they're also very eager to learn. So, and that's where, working with Link J as an advisor, we work with companies, with startups, and look at their pitch deck and give them, very, very honest feedback on their pitch decks. And they really take it to, they really listen, and they make the changes. And the you just, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, right? And when you're so involved in what you're doing every day, it plays in your mind perfectly. But then when you're trying to think about, okay, who's the audience here, and we're trying to help them role play for an overseas VC audience. um I put that hat on, and that presentation doesn't play as strongly as it could, because it's missing points, and we give that feedback. And so I think, again, having those sorts of mentorship opportunities, and then kind of, we should also do like a train the trainer almost. So someone who's has successfully done that, they should go be sharing that to their next generation, or their peers. So this is what I'm seeing worked. These are the changes that we made. This is what didn't work the first time, and so that we learn from each other. So I think that spirit of Kaizen, um, as a budding industry of startups, and how are we going to continue to evolve in our own Japanese way for introducing innovation.
It is people, after all.
Yeah,
People talking to people. I
yeah,
mean, look, we can talk through Zoom all we want. I mean, I don't have to travel to Japan or to San Francisco or whatever, but we still do. These big events, JP Morgan, it still exists, and there's loads of people going there because people enjoy being with other people and
yeah,
sharing
indeed,
with like-minded people. Um,
indeed.
and that Japan is also very very face-to-face culture.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that part
indeed.
is the more we do of that, uh, the more we're gonna have more great ideas come out of these serendipitous gatherings, I guess, or
Well,
meetings.
I am incredibly optimistic about the future here. I'm incredibly impressed with what AMED and the MHLW are doing here. The response of the PMDA, and I mean, they're putting every effort into making this as easy as possible. Um,
Yes.
and but you still need local knowledge. Um, there's still going to be some growing pains. So I think everyone just having a can-do mindset, and kind of a international kind of mindset, and just kind of make, when we all kind of create it as we go along. um, I think we could really pivot Japan here to become really just another
Yes.
center for
Well,
innovation.
Well, that it sounds so convincing coming from you, who've been there for the past few decades, seeing it on the ground. Because the word globalization is not a new word since last year. It's something that's been around since 60s, 70s, 80s. But to really put it into practice, as I've seen in the last 2 years, you've
Hmm.
seen it over the past 20 years. You must see a trend of something that's more and more pronounced. For example, PMDA just opened their U.S. office in 2024. Like, they've been talking about globalization forever, but their office in Washington D.C. November 2024. So it's been like a year and a bit, right? AMED also has an office there, and now they're opening up lots of subsidiaries of Japanese companies, Japanese smaller companies like Rexel and all these little companies are now going outside. So this globalization is now not just a buzzword; it's really
Mm-hmm.
happening.
Mm-hmm.
And global
Yep.
companies are coming into Japan, the bio labs and you know, the I'm seeing Portal Innovation, all these accelerators and incubators, investors, Saisei. These guys are all coming into Japan.
Yep.
So it's happening. It's not just talk. It's happening,
It's happening. It is happening.
right?
Yes, indeed.
So
It's
that's
happening.
tremendous for the industry. Investments, licensing, M&A. What's your next prediction or forecast? Let's sort of end on that. And on a positive note, I hope it's positive.
My next prediction, I just, I can't give
For
anything
Japan, of
too
course.
too concrete, but I'm just incredibly optimistic. I think this is I'm the most optimistic I've been about innovation from Japan than I ever have been.
Oh,
Um,
great.
yeah, and I think if we can
Oh,
continue on this path that we're on, um, and making, I think Japan has the opportunity to be, just the Asian capital, for innovation. Um, China is running hard too, though, so we cannot rest. I mean, we got to
mhm.
keep the pedal on the metal here, and so we don't
Yes.
get overlooked. But so much about the science here, so much about the access that's available, so much around the collaboration from the government agencies. All of the pieces are there, and it is exactly that. It's an ecosystem, and
Yeah.
we have to all remember that we're a part of this ecosystem, and if we all give back to it, it's going to grow and thrive. So, you know we don't just want to take, we want to give and help it thrive, because when the ecosystem thrives, we all thrive, and ultimately patients will thrive. So, and that's why we're here.
That was a
Amazing.
happy
I'm
ending.
having a torihada right now.
Yeah, I know.
It's
Kando,
it's not
Kando.
about take, it's about give.
Yeah. Hey, we're
So
lucky to we're
on
lucky
that,
to do what we do.
absolutely. Absolutely.
We're
We
lucky to
are
do what we
lucky.
do. I think
And
so.
being grateful allows us to want to give back. And giving
Indeed.
back allows the whole ecosystem to thrive. So on that amazing note, thank you very much, James.
Thank you.
You're a very, very busy person, but thank you for sharing your time, which I think is the most important resource that people can share.
Thank
Um,
you. It's been a pleasure.
your
I
wisdom,
enjoyed this conversation very much. Thank you.
No,
And I'm
thanks.
very
fantastic.
inspired.
Good, good. We'll be tagging you on the little bits and pieces that we'll be running on
Fantastic.
LinkedIn. So
Looking forward to it.
check it out,
Great.
spread that,
I
and
will.
have a wonderful week. And hopefully, I'll see you in Japan in a few
Yes.
weeks.
Yeah, would love to.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right.
Great.
Well, thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Cheers.
We'll see you at the
Bye.
next episode in about 2 weeks. All right.
All
Take
right.
care,
Bye.
everybody. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.